Hello, everybody. I am so pleased to welcome my learned colleague and friend and just all-around shiny person, Shelly Prosko, who is just, sometimes you meet people with just super big brains who make everything accessible and applicable and presenting just in-depth knowledge, but in a really usable way. Shelly is that person. She has this amazing book, Yoga and Science in Pain Care. This is a book, you can see like I've got so many different pages marked. It's a book I come back to again and again and again because you can dip into it, you can get lost in a chapter. Can we just say, just for all the nerds out there, this is probably one of the best referenced book and best indexed book out there. I love a good index, but all the references are in here as well. So it just brings, I think, the best of yoga, the ancient tradition of yoga, right into what we now understand about modern pain science. But you leave not only with the depth of knowledge about the research and the literature, but also a toolbox that you can start using straight away. And I was just saying to Shelly before we started today, what I would love to talk to her about, of course, the book and things that are in it, but I was pulling out some things and I said, basically my three favorite things in life are books, yoga, and pooping. And Shelly has contributed to so much in those different areas of my life that I feel grateful every time I have a bowel movement, because she has an amazing toilet meditation, which we will get to. I think, particularly because we're in these COVID times, I think talking about the breath and about compassion are two timely issues. What I would love to do, Shelly, if it's okay, is I would just love to read just a little, the opening passage from the chapter on the breath, because I think it will set the scene for us. We often hear or use the term, just breathe. When we are suddenly overwhelmed with emotion, we use idioms like, that took my breath away, or write words like gasp to describe intense emotions, such as awe, fear, or surprise. If a child is very upset and crying, or someone has just heard some shocking and tragic news about a loved one, we often notice the breath pattern has visibly changed, where the person may be gasping for air, holding their breath, breathing excessively with a shallow, rapid pattern. We naturally feel inclined to immediately attend to the breath by offering that advice to just breathe when we notice a person overwhelmed with emotion or experiencing sudden acute pain that results in a struggling breath pattern. As healthcare providers working with people in pain, we may notice breathing patterns are altered in people experiencing both acute and chronic pain. And conversely, when an individual's breath pattern changes, the person may experience changes in their pain, emotions, movement strategies, and overall state of mind. It's beautiful. It just sums it all up.
Thank you. It only to that little portion only took 2 years to write. You know what writing's like. Thank you for reading that. Can you read our whole book? So you put a book on tape. Oh, you read. No, really, you are an amazing reader. Just the
that passage moves me so much because it sums up. Particularly, I think, working in pelvic health, as we've both done for some time, and using yoga as a therapeutic tool. But I think also as a tool, a physical tool, both as a bottom-up and a top-down tool for addressing people who are in pain, whether that's physical or psychological, or can we even separate them?
Exactly. Yeah, and I actually just did, so we have a book club webinar series, and I just did chapter 8 this week. So on this chapter of breathing, and that's one thing that we talk about. We know that pain can change your breathing, and we also know that breathing can change your pain, and we have different levels of evidence, and we don't know why, we don't know the underlying mechanisms. But I like what you really say about the mind body, or the top down influences. So is it expectations, is it beliefs? And there's some really cool research that on breath and pain, on there are hypotheses, of course, as to the underlying mechanisms, but some is showing, well, it may not be just about the autonomic nervous system, because often we think of the vagus nerve, and prolonging exhalation or slowing down the breath activates parasympathetic nervous system and all that. And those are some theories. And then that you know, the vagal afferent can go to different areas of the brain, and then that can change, you know, again, like you said, like I said, how you read it with the emotions, cognition, or even pain control, different areas in the brain. And but just getting back to what you said, I really liked when you said, oh, excuse me, about the top down and bottom up, and is that even, can we even really separate it, you know, the mind body and body mind? And I say not really. I mean, that's kind of dualistic thinking, right? And when we say mind body connection, you know, that's really saying, you know, the body's talking to the mind, and the mind is talking to the body, and it's like, well, then you're saying they're separate, and then there's all these kind of pathways. But in yoga, you know, the philosophy and many other ancient wisdom traditions, we look at the, you know, the whole organism, the whole being, and it's all interrelated. And I don't know that you can separate, but it's easier to separate to teach and to talk about it, because then how do we understand? So models are interesting, but yeah, no, it's the research on how breathing can change your pain is fascinating. We do know it can change pain. The underlying mechanisms are so complex, and it seems to be a combination of top down and bottom up.
And it's, you know, because we have to breathe, you know, we breathe whether or not we're thinking about it 25,000 times a day. And it's such a great tool to be able to tap into, both as an avenue of mindfulness, as one of, again, pelvic health awareness, but to bring even, I think, awareness to the tension that we may or may not be carrying, you know, unnecessarily in our body. And I love, you know, how you write about breath awareness versus breath regulation. I wonder, could you just share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. So that's a really important distinction. And this, of course, chapter, we're talking in the context of pain, but of course, or sorry, the context of breathing, but it could be in the context of body awareness or thought awareness or emotional awareness and regulation. But we'll speak to just in the context of breathing. So awareness practices, and awareness is simply just noticing without trying to change anything. And then the regulation practices, now you're trying to change something about the breath. So, and there's all kinds of different characteristics, right? So we could regulate, or another word might be manipulate, although that word kind of has a negative connotation, but it's what you're doing. You're manipulating the breath. So you could change different aspects, like the rate, the pace, the depth, the length of the inhale and exhale. You could change how much if you hold the breath a little bit at the end, or if it's continuous. You can change resistance. So there's different practices where you kind of close the glottis, so you add resistance, or as we know in physio practice, we were always taught that pursed lip breathing that can add resistance. You can mechanically change, or you can change the biomechanics by changing your position. So if you get into a certain yoga pose or just any position, that's going to change, you know, how the ribs are moving or the spine. So you can use that, or lying on your stomach and doing like a certain breath pattern. Maybe it's what we call in yoga like a 3-part breath. So you're kind of feeling, you know, you imagine the abdominal area expanding in the low back, and you can feel that when you're lying prone, especially. You can feel the posterolateral areas of your body expanding. And then the second part is into the rib cage, and then the third part is more the chest area. So you can do like this practice in different positions, and that's going to change how you experience the breath. And so the awareness versus the regulation, that's important, because, and in the context of pain, so what we want to do when we help people that we're working with, we want to try to help them change something within their existence to give their system, themselves and their system, evidence of safety, right? We want that safety as the input, so that then the processing and the output could potentially help to modulate the pain. and the experiences. So not just pain, but all the protective outputs. So anxiety, how you're breathing, you could even change that, your thoughts, your beliefs, your immune system. I mean, all the outputs of the brain. So we can use this breath regulation. So we've got the research now where we say, okay, the slower, longer, and I won't get into the details of all that. That's in the book chapter, but there's these different things that we can change about the breath to help increase that evidence of safety. Now, before we do that, you have to first be aware, right? So awareness is the first step to change. And particularly if we are in a time of struggle or an activity that's very painful, or we're fearful of that movement or certain position. So whenever we're in that moment of this is really hard, that's going to be really hard to change your breath or your body tension or your thoughts, because you're in the thick of it. So the idea of the awareness practices, one value that they have is to practice the just being aware. And I can do it right now for just a few seconds. Just check in. If you can even close your eyes if you want. I won't take long. Just check in. Don't have to change anything. Check in with the breath. Check in with the rate. Check in with the length of the inhale, the length of the exhale. See if they're different. Maybe notice the depth of the breath. And maybe you can even notice any qualities, like is it bumpy or rigid, or is it smooth and soft? And maybe you can even feel the breath now in and out of the nostrils, any physical sensations through the nasal passageways. Maybe you can tell if you're breathing through one nostril more than the other. The temperature, maybe it's a little cooler and drier on the inhale, maybe a little warmed and moistened on the exhale. And while we're in the zone, I'm going to go into breath regulation. So that was just awareness. And now let's see if you can make your breath a little longer. So you don't have to take a deep breath. Don't over breathe. Just as you exhale, just let it linger. Let your breath last. And then when you inhale, it's like you're just sipping it. There's no place to go, no place to be, right where you need to be. You can be patient. And you can have this idea of just receiving the breath when you inhale. So you don't have to take a breath, just allow it. When it's ready, it'll be there for you. Trust it. Making the breath a little smoother if you can, like it's gliding or sliding. So longer, smoother, maybe softer, like the breath is landing on a really soft, plush blanket, maybe curvy around the edges. And just enjoy that. And that just gives you a little example. I kind of, briefly went through that, but you can look, we just what was that? Maybe 2 minutes. I don't know. I lost track of time, but just brief. So that's the difference, the awareness piece. And then once you're aware, then you can regulate. So now if we were working together and now we're, doing movement and we're doing all sorts of things. Well, there's a couple things here. So now when we're working together and we're moving and, you get tense, or maybe I notice it, or you're just getting fearful. So again, it could be body tension. It could be mind tension, anxiety. You don't want to, do that. One's coming. Okay. You're aware that your breath got choppy because we've done the practice. And so, and I don't even have to tell you. So what happens when I'm working with patients, they figure this out on their own. So now that's super empowering. They go home, they come back and they say, I noticed that every time I go, in and out of my car, get up and down off the toilet, and they might have neck pain. And they're like, well, even though I don't even really hurt when I, do this activity, but I noticed that I was holding my breath, or, and so they notice the different qualities of the breath because they've done this awareness practice at rest. And then, so going back to that that example of if I'm working with you and you're in that moment where you're really struggling and you have the fear and the tension, we can say, okay, now where's that longer, smoother, softer breath? And so now you do have to regulate, and then that can help regulate the body tension and even the mind. And we have that link of breath to, like I said, the emotions. It can calm, you know, any anxiety and fear. And yeah, so that, I hope you followed that. I got excited because I had another thought in my head about the awareness piece.
Yeah.
And how people, they've told me, and we've got some literature too that shows us, once you're more aware of the breath. So that first little practice we did, just awareness, not the regulation. There's some cool stuff like with the insular cortex. That's like such a, you know, common part of the brain study these days. But it's so interesting. There's just simple awareness. The insular cortex is really involved with that, and just because of connections or something with the insular cortex helps us then be more aware of our own emotions and even more aware of emotions of others. So there's that whole conversation.
And was there ever a time when we needed that more?
Right. Yeah. So anyways, I've been talking a lot. You probably want to ask some different questions, but yeah.
I can really just sit here and listen and nod for about 3 hours. So, you know, just two things that popped into my head while you were that was delicious, first of all. But second of all, you know, it's like we're teaching somebody to become their own biofeedback device without the beeping noises and the flashing lights and an external locus of control. You're just bringing people back into their bodies, giving them that awareness of a process that's normally unconscious. And again, as you said, empowering. But I think also empowering not only for the person, but also for their physio or their, you know, their healthcare worker, whoever, because I think as physios, we're so trained to be fixers and to get in and solve people's problems. And I don't know about you, but like it's also a daughterly thing as well, because I find myself, you know, just trying to organize everybody in my life as well, my parents, my child, my husband. And I've been doing over the past 12 months of postgrad in health coaching. And that's one of the big messages and challenges personally, is to be able to stop trying to fix people, to allow them to explore their own needs, wants, and desires. If they want guidance, absolutely, but really just to hold that space for them and to create an element of mindfulness. And again, to get out of this and into their hearts. And I just think you just did that so elegantly and eloquently in 2 minutes. You transformed my heart rate, blood pressure, respiration rate from a different continent, you know, and that's the magic of being aware of your breath, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, that's the magic of awareness in general, and breath in general. And, you know, the value of some of these practices, like, are just so simple, and especially the breath. You know, it's accessible anywhere, anytime. You can do it even without anybody noticing, you know, if you needed to, if you're sitting in a big conference, or if you're up speaking at a big conference, you can tap into, I mean, you can't go into a straight meditation if you're, you know, in certain moments, but you can always, just for a moment, just tap into it. Like, it's always there for you. It's always there for you. And it can be your friend. It, you know, can give you some information. So I love Van Dixhoorn is a researcher around breath. And I love the quote of, one of the roles of the breath is to provide conscious awareness of the state of your body. You know, and I would even add it provides conscious awareness of the state of all aspects of your existence. It's beautiful. And yeah, it's powerful. And then in yoga, we consider breath as foundational and yeah, one of the most powerful aspects of therapy.
Absolutely. And I think it's one that can sometimes get overlooked, because when people think yoga, they think of the physical asana practice, but the breath work aspect of yoga, and again the practice of avoiding harming yourself and others, and just having again, just bringing that element of compassion into it as well. But can you be compassionate to yourself and others if you're not aware of yourself? And the breath is the doorway.
Well, yeah, I mean, it can be. There can be many other doorways, but that seems to be a powerful one for many people. And it could be just, you know, who knows why, but it's, you know, it's interesting, the word breath. I have this in the book chapter, and I hope I don't mix it up, but like in Latin, like the word breath is dispiritu. So that's for the spirit. That's interesting. And then in Greek, it's pneuma, like pneumonia, P-N-E-U-M. So pneuma, that means soul. And, you know, and then you look at like just the sounds of like breath in a lot of different cultures and traditions, like that spirit, right? Like, isn't, are you familiar, like aloha? Are you familiar? I forget, like what doesn't it? It means like aloha, like it's something to do with breath.
Yeah, my breath, you know, I welcome you with my, it's something about welcome you with my breath, or may my breath welcome you in.
Yeah.
But I'm even of the word inspiration.
Right.
You know,
spirit.
and
spirit too. Yeah.
Exactly. And I just think it's such, it has the potential to become super esoteric, and you know, we can go down rabbit holes, but at its very basic level, we breathe in, we breathe out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's what I like about our book. Like we combine like some of this philosophical kind of stuff, like breath is spirit and life, and what are some of the stories, and you know, and it's just beautiful how the breath like moves through you in some of those different metaphors. And then we bring in, and like, look at the science is actually saying like this, it's just giving us a different language on how to say it. So I kind of like, that's kind of fun to do that.
It's gorgeous. It's again, it's gorgeously done. It's elegantly intertwined in the book. You literally are going from ancient Greek traditions to, but here's the reference for it, you know, from the literature. And it's a beautiful dynamic approach to that red thread that connects it, you know, throughout the ages, and how we've always known that breath is spiritual, psychological, and physical as well. And just a great way, again, when our wheels are spinning, when we are stressed out, when we're all up here, just to bring it back down again. And yeah, you can let go of your shoulders, you can let go of your jaw, you can soften your belly, and just let it go. Just let it go with the exhale. And one of the many favorite parts of the book, and I wonder if you talk a little bit about it, is the resurrection breath. Because that, for me, it's such a powerful exercise. Again, you know, everybody's so jangly at the moment, and we can all think about times where we've had a bad situation, things have not gone well for us, we're not happy with how we behaved in a situation, or we're not happy about how other people, and instead of letting that story continue to spiral and grow, for me, I find just remembering to do this resurrection breath sequence is a great way to just, you know, no, stop, reset, move on, you know, put that down. It literally changed my life, you know, because it's deceptively simple, but it's incredibly profound. So I wonder,
Michelle.
No, I'm serious, Shelly.
That makes me so happy that, you know, that's something, because that's the thing, there's all these different things, and then certain things land for people in certain ways, and I didn't know that about you, so that just warms my heart. Like, I'm so happy that that's a practice that you use and that it's helpful for you.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Never more so than the past 12 months, let me tell you.
Oh, I'm okay.
Let's tell folks about the resurrection breath, because I can't keep it to myself.
Okay, well, how about we do it first, and then these things don't take long. So, well, I'll kind of explain it and then we'll do it. So it's this idea, I mean, this message comes up over and over and over again. We kind of just talked about it too, but not explicitly. And it's the message of presence, just being present. And all the ancient, wisdom traditions tell us, suffering is in the mind, suffering is, you're maybe ruminating on past stuff or catastrophizing maybe about future things or grasping. And that doesn't mean that we are going to just, be like a Labrador puppy that just lives in the moment and not plan for the future and not use our past to learn. And so that's not what this stuff means. We have to be clear. But it means you can still be in the present when you're planning for the future. You can still be in the present when you're trying to learn about and reflect on the past, but it is this idea of not getting caught up in the narrative or the story, like you said. Okay, so this practice helps us stay, like you said, reset and be present. And so I'll just show you first and then we'll do it together. So it's basically 3 breaths. And on the first exhale, so you take a breath in, and then on the first exhale, you're going to do 2 short exhales when you turn your head to the left. So it's going to look like this. And then you're going to inhale back to center. And then the next exhale is 1 long, slow breath, and you can like blow it away as you turn your head to the right. So that's like blowing away the future. And when you turn your head, when you do the first one, that's like getting rid of the past. And then on the last one, as you exhale, the chin drops to center and you're present. So, okay, let's just try that. So all breath out. And just where you are, take a nice, or rather receive the next breath, just to receive the inhale. And when you exhale, turn your head to the left and take your 2 short, blowing away that past. Inhale back to center, take your time, just a long, smooth, soft breath. And then exhale right when you're ready. Blow the past, the future away from grasp. Inhale back to center when you're ready. And then exhale, draw your chin down towards the heart center. Fully present, ready for this moment, to engage in the moment with compassion and kindness, or with whatever value is important to you. We can take that presence with us now as we continue our chat, and that was helpful. So thank you for that, because that resets, but helps me. Okay, we're present, clear, I'm here. I'm not thinking about what I said or what I want to say. I'm just here and I'm ready for your next question, and I'm going to answer it fully present and wholeheartedly. So it's beautiful.
It's just such a